Good evening from Swansea, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for pro wrestling insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. Last night's SmackDown saw the right-hand man Jey Uso turn and betray his tribal chief Roman Reigns in what might just be the biggest moment in WWE this year as the Bloodline crumbled. It was a huge moment. We have a huge SmackDown to break down today on the show. And joining me to talk about this big episode, we firstly have the head of reviewing here at Wrestling Republic, Coby Galenzoski. How are you, Coby?
Pretty good. I mean, obviously, this is the post SmackDown where stuff happened, and then the Bloodline happened, which was really good. I mean, obviously, we're gonna get into things, but other than that, it was an all right SmackDown. But of course, it was carried by the main segment, the main
Yeah.
event segment, however you view it. But obviously, like you said, we got a lot to talk about.
Well, I mean, it was very much carried by one segment, and that segment did involve the Bloodline. And I guess, to be honest, you could say a lot about most SmackDowns this year. A lot of them have been carried by the Bloodline. And now the Bloodline's crumbled. Who knows how things will go from here? But also joining me to discuss all of this today, Shad. How are you, Shad?
What's going on, Ben? What's going on, Coby? I'm good, man. I got to kind of hyper watch SmackDown this morning. Didn't watch it live yesterday, so stayed away from social media. Made sure to catch the bits of it and the episode this morning. And yeah, man, I kind of agree with you. I feel like this is kind of a reoccurring theme for SmackDown, where we're seeing a lot of just like quick matches go on, and then you have the Bloodline segment that just makes me be like, this was an incredible SmackDown. But we'll get into it, of course, right now.
Absolutely, and it kicked off. SmackDown kicked off with a tag team gauntlet match. And for anybody who knows me, you know that I don't like gauntlet matches because it basically makes everybody in the middle look weak. As obviously a team starts, usually a team at the beginning goes all the way right to the end and then either wins or loses right at the end. But everyone at the middle looks weak. I've never been a fan of them, and I never really will be. They're also usually quite obvious to work out, and to be honest, this one wasn't that different. I did like how all the tag teams were standing ringside. I thought that was a bit of a nice touch, and it kind of made it feel a little bit more tense, and I did like that. But then heading into the match, I was convinced, honestly, that Sheamus and Ridge Holland would get that victory because, of course, it's taking place in 2 weeks' time, not at Money in the Bank, but at the SmackDown the night before Money in the Bank in the same arena as Money in the Bank, which is the O2 Arena in London. So I presumed, Sheamus, he's a huge star in the UK, probably the biggest wrestling star in the UK, even though he's obviously from Ireland, not the UK. He's still been the face of wrestling here for almost a decade now, right? And I thought it was, basically guaranteed that he was winning this, and we'll get the title shot on the Friday. So on the Friday show, you have Sheamus. Then on the Saturday show, you have obviously the main attractions and all of that. But they didn't win, and it shocked me. But they did start the match strong. They took on the Street Profits first, and very quickly got the victory here. And this shocked me. This did shock me. It was a clean, quite fast victory. And I mean, I guess the reason the Street Profits started first was because they didn't want them to get beat by Sheamus and Ridge down the road in the match once they were already beaten up, right? So they wanted them to still feel strong. But it was so short that they did still look weak, the Street Profits. So who knows? Maybe we'll be getting back to speculating if they're going to break up again in the near future. I hope not. But then Hit Row also lost in second. So did pretty much Anderson and Gallows. They were a bit longer than Hit Row, but it was still very, very quick. And so was the LWO. Before then, Pretty Deadly came in, and they got a shock victory. Well, shock victory if you ignore the fact that pretty much all of these matches has somebody go from the start to the end with the ending team then beating them. But Pretty Deadly will be taking on Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens in London the night before Money in the Bank 2 weeks yesterday. And yeah, it should be a decent match. was kind of surprised by the outcome. I do think it's a mistake to not give Sheamus a big match during the London shows, but I did love how they had a Pretty Deadly celebrating throughout the break, and then when it came back after the break, they had Owens and Zayn have like a promo segment with them, and it was quite funny, quite enjoyable. And they only have 2 weeks to build this feud, right? So I'm really glad they did something like this to just start building it. And then they have next week's show as well. They have Kevin and Sammy can address it on Monday. Pretty Deadly can respond on Friday, and then have Owens and Zayn come back out on Friday. Then you can have Owens and Zayn respond again the following Monday, and then on the Friday have the match itself. So there is a little bit of time to, talk about it. But Shad, what did you think about this match?
All right, so I have a lot of revolving thoughts in regards to this match. I'll start with the match within itself. I am in the same exact boat as you. I don't like these gauntlet matches at all. I don't. I understand the namesake of having all these tag teams getting TV time and having them, visible and letting them be on the show, but it's like it goes way too quickly, and you have way too many talented wrestlers looking weaker and taking L's. Like the Street Profits getting out initially. I mean, what are we doing, man? This is one of the best tag teams in the WWE, one of the most over teams in the WWE. I don't like seeing them go out off the rip. Hit Row, I don't know what's going on with them. I'm very confused. I feel like they're kind of in that same bubble that we see Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green, where they're like kind of comedy. Like, I mean, even not even as that, because I think those two are way more over and they get more reputable matches in TV time. But I feel like they should at least use them like that if they're going to just keep eating L's after L. Like they got out like in the manner of seconds. And Gallows and Anderson, I feel like I haven't seen them really wrestle that often. So, but I mean, and then LWO is the same thing too. So, I don't like the match structure. It's just kind of little too much for me. In regards to the ending and who won, you know me, man. I'm gonna have to have my victory lap now, because my first episode on the podcast, I was talking about this is the debut of Pretty Deadly. Almost a month ago, I said, man, these guys are, destined for stardom, and I can see them having a feud with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, and look what we're here, man. We're gonna see them in that match in the UK right before Money in the Bank, and I think it's gonna be. I think just the interaction last night was perfect. I think these guys, like, they have that comedic style that works in the WWE, and then Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn have the same thing. Like, they're gonna be able to make this work. I think the match is gonna be phenomenal. But I definitely understand where you're coming from, saying that Sheamus, I feel like he needs to be in some sort of like big time match or something within that weekend. Because I mean, you didn't even have him in the Money in the Bank, and he showed his frustration on that too. So they got to throw him a bone for something like that. But I'm happy for Pretty Deadly. I think you're elevating a tag team, and I think they're going to be able to build a good feud out of this as well.
I think perhaps what they should just do with Sheamus, thinking about it, is just have him come out at Money in the Bank and do an open challenge, and then have Drew McIntyre return, and then for them to have their big blow-off match like that. Because obviously they're on two opposing brands currently, so you can't have a feud between them. But just as an open challenge match, I guess that's something you could do.
Oh yeah, I like that idea. I actually like that idea a lot.
I mean, the only issue is the crowd will be maybe a bit divided, but still, it'd be fun. And you'd get them both on the card, and I'm sure the UK crowd would be happy. And we've got numero one Superfly in the comments here saying there's literally no plans for Hit Row unless you count Top Dollar getting buried for not going.
Yeah, I feel like that like spot has like left him to like crash and burn forever with their booking. Like, I mean, I get that, but like the guy's put in a lot of work. I mean, he looks in tremendous shape now. He's lost a lot of weight. He's better in the ring than he was. Like, I mean, they're a team that I feel like you can use them in that same breath as like Sonya and Chelsea, but like let them have like more like valuable TV time. But I don't know.
No, I do think I do think you're right, because it was just one mistake, and they are quite entertaining. Their raps. I mean, they did a rap about the OC the other day, and it didn't even make it onto actual TV. And it
TV.
was a really good rap. It built the match up well, and they said it was just a one single match. Tell some stories on SmackDown. That's currently what they're pretty much not doing outside of titles
Hmm.
themselves. But Coby, what did you think about the Gauntlet match and Pretty Deadly winning?
Pretty Deadly was the right call, but the thing that kind of stuck out to me is we saw in January, and it was they. I mean, obviously they didn't call it a gauntlet match, but they called it the tag team turmoil, and it was for the Raw. It was full with the Raw tag teams with Judgment Day, the Alpha Academy. I think who else was the OC, the OC, the Prophets. At the end of the day, that match was phenomenal. It had the time where almost every tag team had over a minute or over 5 minutes. Like in this case, it was almost all of the teams barely had 2 minutes of action, aside from the final match and the one that was between the commercial breaks. Like it was weird. It was weird because I like the story that you can tell with gauntlet matches. Obviously, it's very cut and paste, like you're saying. It's usually the one of the first teams wins and they go a long way, and then blah blah blah. I think you can, if done right, those stories can still be told. As basic as they are, they can still be entertaining, and this one just was not that. I agree with the statement that it was the right decision to have Pretty Deadly still out there, and then they say, I think they started to talk, and then Sammy and Kevin showed up. Sammy kind of cracking, "Hey, you've been out here for 5 minutes, and you've been out here for 5 minutes too long." It's just all in good fun. They're being the entertaining faces while not necessarily having the top rivalry, which obviously we know is the Bloodline, but they're making entertaining television, and especially with the Kevin Owens outbursts that we're seeing on a daily basis. I mean, I think they are going to go in separate directions. Like they're not going to. I don't think they're going to. They might mention it, but I don't think they're going to directly build the title match on Raw. But because they'll be there next week on SmackDown as well, because they
Yeah.
are the champs. They've done it for the last 2 weeks. They've been there, and I mean, Sami Zayn's still doing Bloodline. Well, Jey Uso stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're still going to be there. They're going to do something next week. I don't know if it's like a singles match between a Kevin and one of the Pretty Deadly. I don't know, but yeah, it's an interesting match. I hope the crowd's really good for them come Friday before Money in the Bank. They deserve
Oh,
it.
they
They can
will
put
be.
on
They
a
will be.
classic. The only thing I can say right now is I hope they don't that tag match in general doesn't get overshadowed by whatever bloodline antics is going to happen on that show.
Mm.
Because something bloodline related will happen on the next two SmackDowns,
Oh,
and we don't want a big match, a big tag title match like that to be overshadowed. I mean, I don't.
110% agree with you there. And I do think the UK crowd will be on fire for the match in 2 weeks' time. I mean, me and Chaos will be in the crowd, so we'll be cheering. I'll be cheering for Pretty Deadly. Sorry, Coby. But
Got to go for the home team, man.
yeah, exactly. That is the one thing. I wonder who the
I mean, it'd be
the
a shock
general
pick.
crowd is going to cheer for.
Well, they're not going to cheer for Pretty Deadly. They're not.
I probably not. Probably not.
They're not. They might be getting good reactions, but that it might turn out to be like, oh, they're both in that face team position where Pretty Deadly actually have to do heel psychology. I don't necessarily think they're going to get cheered over the champions because it's Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens.
That's true.
I mean, not to mention, it's the first It's the first SmackDown televised show in how long? They haven't aired like tape delayed a Raw or SmackDown from the
They
UK
probably
in
will.
so long.
They probably
It's
will put in
interesting.
crowd
It's
sound.
good to see that. Well, I don't think they're going to put in crowd sounds, but it's a matter of Pretty
Yeah, I
Deadly.
mean, international markets tend to, because they're so like, it's such a rare commodity for them to come out there. They are more receptive enjoying the show as compared to us in the States where they come over here a lot, you know. So
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Well,
I mean,
and I mean, I guess
absolutely.
just shortly, this and a statistic I saw, and because we all know Fightful, they do a lot of great work. One of their representatives, Sean Ross Sapp, was there last night, and he said in October, the same place they sold about, I think it was like 3,700 tickets.
mm,
Tonight, last night, it was 9,200,
wow,
like in the 9,000s. So it just shows the difference.
triple
Yes,
that.
it was a live
Yeah.
event last time, but it just shows that how often they do show up, and this time it is that hot of a it's that hot of a show now at this
Yeah,
point.
no, it really, really is. SmackDown and a chance to see Roman Reigns in the Bloodline. That's a big deal too. And we got Matt Williams in the comments here saying that Shane Strickland is so good. Hit Row is missing a true leader in his opinion. Pretty Deadly is awesome. One of the few name changes that they didn't completely butcher. Lol. I mean, I can't
I
even
think
remember
I think
Pretty Deadly's
Swerve. I
full
think
name.
So Pretty Deadly originally was Lewis Howley and Sam Stoker, or Stoker.
God,
They've been Pretty Deadly for
Then
quite a while,
NXT
haven't they?
no, they changed their names, not Pretty Deadly. They
Oh,
changed
okay. Sorry.
the person's name,
Yeah,
not
oh,
sorry.
but the
You are
tag
right
team
the
is
there.
all the tag team has always been pretty
the
deadly
tag
though.
team was always Pretty Deadly. It used to be Lewis Howley and Sam
Yeah, that's right.
Stoker, and now it's Kid Wilson and Elton Prince.
Which does sound way
I
better.
think they're playing Elton because of the British connection type of
Yeah.
thing. But I like them. I like it.
Who knows? Maybe
I,
we'll see Pretty Deadly on a Collision now that Elton John's music's on there. But yeah, no, Swerve Strickland, he really did make Hit Row. Maybe they need to throw somebody in as a leader for Hit Row. I mean, I don't know who.
you
But
don't know
perhaps
who.
there's
No.
someone out there who would be suitable for it. I mean, in NXT, I mean, Shad, do you have any ideas of anybody in NXT who could?
NXT. See, I don't want to be the person that's just gonna like. I know a lot of people are like just throw a person that's in like another like black wrestler just for the namesake of it. I don't
Yeah.
like doing that. And like, I mean, I've heard people say like Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. I kind of like them just as a
Yeah.
duo. I don't want to kind of muddy their persona because I think both of them, if they came up on the main roster as a duo, just together is
Yeah.
perfect.
And money.
I think. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know. Like what they can do. Like in regards to who you add. I honestly want to be opposed to just letting them go back to NXT and let them kind of reheat themselves up.
Yeah, no, that actually, to be honest with you, probably is the move to just set them down to NXT for a bit and redevelop. But I think they basically were just brought back in to just be names, and that kind of frustrates me because I think in every match, unless it's a rare squash match, I think in every match you should have some emotional connection to the characters, even if some characters lose most weeks. If you have an emotional connection, it won't feel as boring.
Mhm.
But now let's move on to a character who's certainly not boring. And that is Grayson Waller, as we had the Grayson Waller effect last night with Charlotte Flair as the guest on it. And Waller very quickly pointed out how Flair was the one who defeated Asuka's undefeated streak. And I actually completely forgot about that, in all honesty. So I'm glad they have touched on that, and I hope they continue to do so throughout the feud. Bianca Belair interrupted and was, of course, furious about how she did things the right way and she was given a rematch. And then Charlotte Flair skipped the line. Charlotte Flair said, "Well, I lost my title match at Mania, so shouldn't I be owed a rematch too?" And then Bianca Belair was like, good point. But I mean, basically, the point of this segment was, if you lose a championship match, you just get another championship shot, which I thought was something which they stopped doing. But anyway, it was a fun segment, and noticeably, Asuka wasn't involved, which did surprise me. But Shad, what did you think about the Grayson Waller effect?
Man, I'm liking how they're kind of introducing Grayson Waller onto the SmackDown brand. I feel like his talk shows actually segue and lead to a lot of productive things amongst feuds, compared to just a lot of like goofiness and silliness that we've seen from other talk show segments. So I feel like it's a good way to kind of get him in familiar with the crowd and just putting him in the same like ring with people that are pretty like premier names on the main roster. So I do like that for him. I do want to see him wrestle soon though. Like they should definitely
Yeah.
do an episode where it leads to a feud or a match for him. But yeah, the segment itself, man, I absolutely love the segment. I'm been very, very keen on the idea of Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair match feud all together, like prior to Charlotte coming back, just because I feel like those two women are like the most dominant, athletic, like superstars in the women's division, and I feel like they can really create like magic in a match. Because like what we saw with Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley at the Mania was phenomenal. I think it could be literally the same type of situation, knowing what Bianca can do and just how much of a ring general Flair is. In regards to the segment itself, I thought like I just love to see this character arc from Bianca now. Like I know a lot of people are trying to say it's more heel, but I kind of feel like it's her being more of a realistic wrestler and just a realistic person and more genuine emotions as her as a like just as an individual. We're not seeing, you know, the happy go loving like smile and all of that type of stuff. You're seeing her upset. Like she's been in this company having matches, having a dominant title reign. I absolutely loved her portion of the the back and forth where she was saying that, you know, I've been the with the longest reigning women in the modern era. I didn't have to do that with 14 title reigns. Like I
Yeah.
was the champ and I stayed the champ. And you saw that fire in her eyes and that passion within her promo. And like I just want to continue to see this because I feel that the reason Bianca Belair's title reign to me became stale is because they kind of ran out of like feuds that kind of mattered or building feuds, and a lot of it just became more honing on her being a lovable over babyface and working more towards obviously with children and all that. But as wrestling fans, we appreciate and love that side of her too, but we want to see more on the promo work and all that. And like last night, like I saw glimpses of how she was a little bit in the NXT combined to what she's been doing recently in the main roster. And I feel like if we get this like version of Bianca Belair now, I think her fighting back up the ranks to try to get the title will be one that will be very interesting to see. We didn't see Asuka. I don't know what's going to lead into the match. I think we are eventually going to get, I don't know if it's going to lead to some like shenanigans at Charlotte and Asuka's match where Bianca may cost Flair, or I don't know if it leads to them going to a triple threat match because I still want to see Asuka have a little bit of a title reign. I don't want one of them to just rip the title off her off the bat. I think you can have a feud with those two without the belt. But they sold me a ticket. I want to definitely see a Bianca and Charlotte Flair down the line whenever they build this matchup.
I absolutely love what you just said, Shad. I mean, I also did love that line from Bianca Belair. You know, you had 14 title reigns, but I've held the title longer than you ever have. That was brilliant because it's a very fair criticism. Yes, she's been at the top of the mountain a lot, but she hasn't stayed at the top of the mountain for very long each time, apart from early on, of course. But we have got a comment from Carl Kinahan here. Shout out, Carl, and he is saying triple threat at SummerSlam, presumably between Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, and Asuka. And I'd love to see that. That would truly
be amazing.
A banger, an absolute bang on a SummerSlam, a stadium SummerSlam worthy match as well.
That'd be amazing, yeah.
But now let's move on to Io Sky versus Zelina Vega, right? And a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about how Zelina Vega, WWE just haven't really done anything with the momentum she had following Backlash. Well, it took them about a month, but she's finally getting some wins under her belt the past few weeks, and she got another win against Io Sky. And this was a very short match, but the gist of it was that Bayley tried to help Io win, ended up costing her the match, and Io Sky was not happy. and it appears Damage Control needed to control their own damage within their own faction at this point. And then Bayley was trying to, sort things out with her backstage. Shotzi then came up to Bayley and said, "I challenge you to put your Money in the Bank place on the line against me next week." And Io Sky jumped in and said, "Bayley accepts." So yeah, cracks in Damage Control there. Very, very clear. But Coby, what did you think about this match and what happened afterwards? Do you think Damage Control is ending?
I think they're coming to an end, and that's the thing. And obviously a massive wrench, and no one's gonna wish an injury upon anyone. Dakota Kai obviously get better soon. She deserves to come back and hopefully grow as a singles competitor, because Damage Control is not going to be the same when she comes back. It it almost seems like, because of the entire dynamic that Damage Control has created, and that they, like you said, there's cracks within Damage Control. They have to control their own damage in their own faction, and however you want to say the play on words. At the end of the day, like we said, Zelina Vega needs some wins. She needs to ride some momentum from her probably her biggest moment of her career at Backlash. And at the end of the day, I do like that they're giving her some wins. It just takes it. But to me, knowing that coming out of this match, we're talking about what Damage Control is doing and not what Zelina Vega's doing after getting another victory, it tells me that it's like, okay, we're probably not necessarily going to see her win the briefcase. As much as I'd be interested in it, I genuinely think we're not going to see some form of Raw superstar. I think we're gonna see the Money in the Bank revolve around Damage Control for the next how many months. Wow. They're going to tell the story with either Io Sky with the briefcase, and maybe Io's the one that is the one to stab Bayley in the back in the match, and then Bayley's like, "Well, why would you do that? We can work together." And like that, I think that's going to be the story with the briefcase. And I like that, because then we actually have a women's briefcase in circulation for more than 24 hours. Yeah. Like the last how many years?
Yeah, that's true.
I hope that is the move they go, because then we can either go with, well, either Bayley is the true snake, or Io Sky is the babyface for being the one to stab Bayley in the back first. I think the women's briefcase has to revolve around Damage Control at this point. I think that's the one way you can kind of salvage kind of the failed trios run that they had. But I do hate the statement. I do hate to say that we are talking about Damage Control despite Io Sky losing the match.
Yeah. No, that is a good point. We're not talking about Zelina Vega after Zelina Vega gets a big win. And she does deserve to be spoken about. But we got Carl back here in the comments over on YouTube saying the damage is out of their control. And yeah, the booking has not been great for them at all. That's but now funny. Let's talk a mixed tag team match between Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux, taking on AJ Styles and Mia Yim, also known as Michin. And this match, this was weird. It was very short. It was fun for what it was, but it was weirdly short. It felt very rushed. This SmackDown was a bit like last week's SmackDown, where everything was a bit rushed, right? And this certainly was. I kind of hoped it got more time, but Styles hit Kross with the Stars Clash before Scarlett made the save. Then Scarlett tried to attempt to flirt with AJ Styles or something, and Styles delivers the line of the year saying, "I'm married," and then a word which we cannot say on air. But that was brilliant. However, then Karrion Kross locked in the cross jacket from behind and ended up getting the victory. It was fine for what it was, but it was quite short, and it appears this feud will be continuing. And I don't really know, why, to be honest with you, right? I do want to see some proper feuds across it. I do. But they need to make us care about, why him and Stars are actually feuding. And I hope they do that over the next couple of weeks. But I am glad that Kross didn't just take another loss here, but I just wish it was a bit longer. And it just felt like it was missing something. But Shad, what did you think about it?
Yeah, it was not much of a match. It was pretty short, but I mean, there were some pretty interesting things that happened to it. It's funny because I remember Scarlett when she was on Impact, and her character was the more kind of like flirty,
Yeah.
seductive person. So I guess she was kind of leaning towards that, but she's still like this like witch character. That's the first thing that rang in my head when I saw that part of it. Cross desperately needs a W, so I think it did benefit. And then obviously it being like a tag match, it's a loss that AJ can have. But I don't know what's on with Karrion Cross's return, to be honest with you, man, because it's like every feud is that he pulls the tarot card of whose opponent is, and then he loses the feud to them. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
don't,
true. It's
I
true.
don't, and then he goes to a next like, and it's been like some solid names. It's been a Drew McIntyre, it's been a Rey Mysterio, a Shinsuke Nakamura, now an AJ Styles, and these are like feuds that he can obviously, in a sense, afford to lose. But I just don't know where the character direction of what you want to do with Karrion Cross. I always thought. Now I've never been the biggest Cross fan character wise in ring. He's not bad, but he's not my cup of tea as like a wrestler I'm a big fan of. But I always thought he was the type of person that would fit in a WWE, um, you know, universe. But it's like not really work for him on the main roster. And obviously, the first go around was kind of silliness, garbage, but I don't know if that left a very sour taste in his character where it's really
Yeah.
difficult for him to kind of get over this next time around. He's not winning many feuds, so that obviously doesn't help him out. I don't know. I feel like you may need to put him in a more like lesser feud against the person that he can get a win over and help him build up. But like these type of feuds where he's gonna lose, because I don't want to see AJ Styles lose this feud to him. Like AJ Styles I know he's on his little like going towards the end of his career being done and going into retirement. But like it's AJ Styles we're talking about, man. This is one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. He shouldn't be losing to a Karrion Cross
No, it's very true.
currently. So yeah, but I mean it's cool. I like to see Scarlett maybe wrestle more. I know she's wrestled prior in like the indies and stuff like that. So mix, and that's another thing. I don't really like mixed tag matches either.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, so it wasn't for me. It was short, but it made some advanced things go on with a feud that I honestly don't care too much about.
Fair enough, fair enough. Let's hope they make us care about it. But yeah, Scarlett, I certainly would like to see more from her. And she's decent enough in the ring as well, from what I've seen of her in Impact and during her indie days. Carl's in the comments, good to see Cross actually get a win. And Numero One Superfly saying this is just a question, but do you think Karrion Cross may need a sort of faction to help him out? My answer to that is very simply, I don't think so. I think it's a possibility, but truthfully, I think they just need to buck him better with Scarlett.
He'd have to be like he could be like a heavy for somebody maybe, but
Yeah, I mean, I think him and Scarlett's a perfect duo. It should work. It's just they haven't given us a reason to care on the main roster to make it work. It worked down in NXT. He can't work on his own. He does need somebody like Scarlett, but him and Scarlett together, I think that does work. But now let's talk about the faction. Let's talk about the Bloodline. Of course, this is what everyone was talking about coming out of SmackDown. And yeah, before the segment on SmackDown, Jey Uso reminded Paul Heyman that if Jey does decide to stay in the Bloodline, then Paul Heyman is out. And as Jey Uso was walking out to make his decision, Sami Zayn just stopped him, gave him a little stare, and then walked past, carried on. No words exchanged, and then Roman Reigns came out, and interestingly, Heyman was carrying the old Universal and WWE Championship, so they're clearly keeping them for a visual, just a visual thing, really. Maybe that will be confusing to casual fans, I'm not sure. But once Jey came out, Roman told him the choice was his. He can either pick. Jey told Roman the choice is Roman's. He can either pick him or Paul Heyman. And Roman Reigns basically said, hey, when you're the tribal chief, which is what I want you to become, you can then decide who's your wise man. But Paul Heyman is my wise man. Then Jimmy Uso came out and Roman Reigns basically said that Jimmy did not want Jey to become the right-hand man. No reason was given. Jey then said to Jimmy, "Is this true?" And Jimmy goes, "Yeah." And then goes to start explaining himself. Jey cuts him off, doesn't give him a chance, starts going into this really passionate speech about like how annoyed he is and all of this and how he makes decisions on his own without consulting him and all of this. And then says, "You know what? You're out of the bloodline." But so am I. Super kick to Roman Reigns, and the bloodline crumbled in front of our very eyes. This was an absolutely brilliant segment. The what chance at the beginning of it did kind of hurt it. It was, I hate when any fans, if you go to a show, right, and in a segment like this start chanting what, you don't deserve to be there. I'm sorry, you don't. But this was an absolutely amazing segment. Solo then looked shocked. The Usos delivered a double super kick to Solo Sikoa before delivering yet another double super kick to Roman Reigns himself. Wow, oh wow. Then today on the SmackDown Lowdown, it has been announced that Money in the Bank, it will be a Bloodline Civil War, where Jimmy and Jey Uso will team up to take on Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa in what I'm presuming will be the main event of the show. And I'm so excited for that. Money in the Bank is looking so stacked right now. I keep on saying it, but I will be there, and I am very much excited for this. But in terms of where this goes from here, well, that's the interesting thing. Now that we know that they're doing a tag team match at Money in the Bank, I think what they're going to do is I think they're going to do Jimmy versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, and then at Payback, 3 years after, of course, Roman Reigns originally won the Universal Championship. I think Jey Uso will try and get payback on Roman Reigns, and the two will face off there. So I think it'll be Jimmy at SummerSlam and then Jey at Payback. And part of me feels that Jey, he might be the one. He might just be the one to take the titles off of Roman. But Shad, I'll go to you first. What do you think about this?
This is cinema, man. This is this is some Oscar nominations that Jey Uso deserves as best supporting actor. Like I said, man, this is a reoccurring theme for SmackDown. They give you a lot of and then they add this bloodline stuff throughout it, and then they close it so strong. This segment was an all-timer, and it goes to that final portion with Jey Uso just talking to his twin brother, the guy who has the same bloodline as him as a brother, and it being a twin, being in that womb together, and throwing that swerve, man, just getting that, making us feel like, oh, is he going to align with Roman and them? And then super kick, man, that was just absolutely incredible. I know that we thought that they may have gone in a different direction going into it, maybe where they try to prolong it, but and then of course we also wanted to see Roman eventually defend his title, maybe sooner than later. But I love it. I think they created the moment, and they hit this like when the iron was hot. Like I think the crowd, like that pop was incredible.
Yeah.
Like it was like wow, it was such a crazy pop, man. Like, and it's like one of those, like, me being a wrestling fan as long as I've been, that's one of the most. This storyline is probably the greatest WWE storyline of all time. Like they've found a way to been able to keep this. They've been able to reheat this and keep it fresh for like such a long time. It's like mind blowing to me. And like now we're in a phase of it where everybody in the wrestling community as wrestling fans are just drawn right back into it, because now it's the Civil War. Now it is Roman versus his cousins, and it's Roman as like Thanos, that super villain. We're hoping and we're praying redemption will come in where one of his cousins, and I'm hoping and is Jey Uso, because I always say this, man, that match where Roman and Jey had, where he's just like destroying him like after he got that title shot was one of the most like one of the greatest storyline driven like matches I've seen in a while. Maybe it was just during the entire pandemic era, but like if we can reconnect it and get back to that where Jay is the one to dethrone Roman and get that title off of him, man, that'd be incredible. Like
that truly would be just the story would come full circle, and I would absolutely love that. And also, you touched upon how the Bloodline segment's basically just saving SmackDown at the minute. And I mean, people are getting really annoyed at us for our reviews on WrestlingRepublic.com for SmackDown each week, saying, "Oh, we're rating it way too low." Well, the show outside of one segment isn't that great, but
right.
now talking about reviewing, let's go to the head of reviewing, Coby Galenzoski. Coby, what did you think about the Bloodline imploding, and where do you think it's going to go from here?
Like you said, like obviously we're getting kind of we're in hot water with kind of rating the shows really low, but like you said, when the show revolves around one statement, and that's really the only mainly positive thing that we can say about the show, it's justified. Like obviously the right decision was pretty deadly, blah blah blah. For the Bloodline scenario, that's the thing. I don't know where it was gonna go. I didn't know where it was gonna go, and that's the beauty of it. And we sound like broken records every single week on the Daily Show when we say this. It's cinema. We don't know where it's going, and that's the beauty of the story, and that's the truth. Because on paper, you could have went the Bloodline story, and you could have branched out. There's so many directions or routes they could have gone, and that's the beauty of it. I think it's a very interesting thing that Jey Uso already turned. To me, I think they could have sold us on the idea of some tag match where we don't know if Jey Uso is going to do it, and then he's there, and the story is, well, Jey Uso's still in a match where he's facing his cousin, the Roman Reigns, his tribal chief, and then you actually have that turn in the match. I don't know if that should have been where they go. Obviously, the moment, the entire I'm out too super kick. It's tremendous. We're going to be talking about it. We're going to get within the next few days. We're going to get one of those statistics of this super kick got WWE 20, 30 million views again. It's good. It's going to be one of those moments. It's like, well, we look back to it like, yeah, it was it's a high profile moment, and that's what happens when Roman Reigns is in the building.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like it's a tremendous storyline. I don't know. We cannot stress it and we cannot say it enough. It is must see television when we see the Bloodline, when we see Roman Reigns on our television screen, and it delivered because we didn't know whether or not Jey Uso was going to side with Roman and for the time being, or like we said, we didn't necessarily see the I'm out too super kick coming, but it was an incredible moment, and that's what wrestling is. Wrestling garners emotion. Wrestling is supposed to make you feel and get you invested, and that's what WWE's knocking out of the park right as of right now. And they did along the build up to WrestleMania. They've somewhat struggled post Mania burnout, but the Bloodline has still been consistent since then.
Yeah, 110%. And I agree with both of you. The storyline, it just completely is cinema, and it's so great. And WWE got us invested again, and it's absolutely brilliant. And I just hope they can do the same now in other storylines which don't involve the Bloodline. But that basically brings us to the end of the show, guys. Thank you to Shad and Coby for joining me here to talk about SmackDown. We'll be back tomorrow to talk AEW Collision.
Yes,
Sunday
sir.
Sundays no more. Now we'll be talking the brand new show, AEW Collision. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the return of CM Punk to see what that will bring. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about. Please, if you're on YouTube, leave a like and subscribe.
Bud Matthews and Andrade too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Me and Andrade too. If you're on Spotify, 5-star follow. It really helps us out. Thank you so much, guys. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy your night and enjoy Collision.